everybody, it's Joelle and Jen from the Chamber, and we are doing our Chamber Chatter today, and we have some very special guests with us. We have Todd Cook, the Director of Legislative Affairs for Labor and Economic Opportunity, and Senator Jim Runested with us. So thank you, both of you guys, for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First off, I have a question, would be Senator Runested. Can you explain the role the legislature is playing right now in governing the state? I see a lot of executive orders coming from the governor, and the legislature appears to be no longer meeting.
Well, the legislature is not meeting formally, other than when we met on April 7th to pass the resolution extending her executive order on the emergency through the end of the month. But we're still doing committee work. We're still working on bills. I'm on conference calls every single day of the week, and even on weekends we're on conference calls. So we are working constantly, I would say in some respects more than ever before. In terms of the executive order, there was two orders that she's working under. The first one was passed in 1945, which gives the governor broad authority to declare an emergency. And the second one gives the legislature, that was in 1996, gives the legislature the ability to authorize a further extension. And that's what we did in April 7th. And that extends this emergency through the end of the month. At the end of the month, we're going to have a decision to make whether to do another extension or not. We're working with the governor, hoping that we can find some kind of an agreement in terms of what jobs are safe versus essential. The governor has messaged recently that if the trend lines looks good, she might be open to some changes. So we're really hoping that both chambers and the governor can all come to some agreement.
Thank you, Senator. I have another question for you. What plans are in place to allow businesses to re-enter the economy? Are business owners being consulted by state government for ideas regarding how to safely and effectively run their businesses?
That is what we've appointed 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans to work on that exact issue. We feel that there is a lot of jobs that could be done safely. As an example, the gentleman who mows our lawn for 10 years, he comes out by himself with his equipment, mows the lawn, leaves, goes to the next place, mows their lawn, invoices everyone electronically. We pay with a credit card. There's absolutely no interaction with the customer. He protects his hands when he pumps gas, so we don't see any issue with a lot of jobs being opened up at the end of the month. And I think that's where there's going to be a lot of negotiation that's going to occur, because safety obviously is first, but if we can do these jobs safely and get people back to work, I see no harm in doing that.
Very good. This next question was submitted to us by one of our members, Mary Hydorn from Kids in Motion. She says, we put our workers on work share, dropping their hours down to 22 from 34 hours per week. These employees are getting unemployment for the hours they don't work. Some of them are being told they don't qualify for unemployment because you have to make less than $543 per week. If you make $1 from unemployment, you get $600 extra. So my therapist, who works 22 hours and makes $775 per week, won't get anything, but if they did not work, they would get the $543 plus $600. So what is the benefit of work share?
Sure, I appreciate the question. And work share is a tool that came around a few years ago to allow employers a way to retain workers, allow them to handle circumstances where maybe they were unsure. And as we are now, as we're coming back online, and the senator has talked about, we know that all businesses won't automatically go to 100% capacity, but work-share is a plan to allow them to retain their workers. There's a benefit there in terms of not having to retain people, keeping experienced people, and helping their employees, who I'm sure they value very much. And how work-share works is you apply with the unemployment insurance agency, and for the reduction in hours. So for example, if you reduce somebody's hours 40%, that worker would be entitled to 40% of their state benefit. Under the state statute, the maximum is 362. The state average prior to the COVID is 325. And so we're seeing more and more people do that as they want to retain workers, as they want to see things come on board. Obviously, the Federal CARES Act, which increased benefits for folks, has an impact both in terms of people who are eligible. So a lot of people who prior to the CARES Act passing wouldn't be eligible for unemployment benefits, self-employed people, 1099 people, people who may have limited work history are now eligible for benefits because of that. But obviously we're seeing an impact on that, but we want to, and has been provided on the governor's current executive order, some flexibility for businesses so they're able to keep and retain people. But it's a way for them to kind of mitigate the fact that maybe their business isn't ready to go at 100% from the get-go, and still retain those employees, let them have some additional benefits to work on that. Like I said, what's made things a little bit complicated for folks, obviously, is what's come in with the Federal CARES Act. But just as a reminder to folks, if an employee is offered a chance to come back to work, the current circumstances of the Federal CARES Act is not a reason for you to refuse to come back to work. Obviously, if you are taking care of a sick family member, if you yourself are still experiencing being sick from COVID, or you have to isolate because you've been exposed to somebody with it, those would be reasons why you could refuse to come back. But it's not an acceptable reason under current UIA standards just to say no, just because of the current federal situation.
Thank you. This next question is directed towards the senator. It's from Tiffany Guthrie of Synergy Electric, and she asks, when businesses that applied for SBA loans through the federal Paycheck Protection Program, when will they see their money?
That is something I'm going to have to defer to the staff. I'm not sure when those dollars are going to be coming through. I do know that with the federal $349 billion that was allocated to get these businesses through the short-term expense period, that money is all gone. And unfortunately, that money was not allocated in a fair way. From what I've heard from many businesses in my community, they applied to banks and were not given the opportunity to get those loans. And what I also have heard is that there's 4 banks that have about 65% of the market share. And those 4 major mega banks were working only with their existing customers. And that should have been fixed by Congress and said, listen, you're gonna let anyone apply for these, not just your existing customers. And the reason they were doing that was they wanted to make sure that those customers were solvent to repay back other loans that they had with these big banks. They also triaged them by taking the biggest customers first and then on down to the littlest customers. The last ones getting the money, from what I understand, are the littlest businesses. I have been hearing constantly about that from the smaller businesses, that they have been shut out of these loans. So it was poorly drafted by Congress. I hear that they're looking at another pool of money that they want to allocate, and hopefully they rectify that in terms of what they put in policies for this new dollar amount. I don't know if Todd wants to add anything additional to that.
Just that, obviously it's a federal program, as the senator has said. We've heard similar concerns that he's raised in terms of people being shut out, or larger clients being kind of preferential. I know that the senator and his colleagues have been talking to their federal partners about this and expressing that we really need on this second round to really kind of focus in on smaller ones. So I certainly appreciate it. We're hearing similar concerns in the department, and I know that the governor has communicated, as well as, like I said, Senator Runested and his colleagues, that small business is really the heart of it. I worked at a chamber for a number of years. I was proud to say and remind people when I was at the chamber that 80% of our members were small businesses. And we know that, small businesses make up the majority of the employment in the country. And so we've really got to be focused on that. And I think that, Senator Runested's been a strong advocate for small business, and I continue to see him doing that. And I know that we're going to make those concerns known to our federal partners to do better this next time.
Great. Our next question is from Tracy Goodnow from For Feet's Sake. She had a similar question, wondering if you were lucky enough to qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan, but you need to use the money for paying for your goods and your rent. She wants to know why that money has to go to wages.
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can offer up what I know, and happy to have you follow up with me. The intent of the PPP from the on-go is to protect people's wages and provide protection for folks. And so obviously that was the intent of the majority of it. We know that as a small business, there are other expenses kind of included with being able to run outside of your employee costs. But that was really the main focus of what they wanted to accomplish. Now, whether that was able to get done and how they set that up, as Senator Runestead has kind of mentioned, there were some flaws in the implementation, we'll see. But the main reason it was focused on keeping people employed and being focused on that as we see these tremendous unemployment numbers shoot up around the country.
I would agree with that. And I think that they could go a long way toward helping some of these businesses that maybe their employees are getting unemployment insurance right now, but they have a huge monthly lease payment, like on a restaurant or something like that. And they say, the employees are not going to come back if I lose this business because I have no revenue and I've got these existing bills. So again, I hope that Congress in the next round considers some of these expenses that these small businesses have.
Thank you, Senator. One more question from Christopher Cobb of Farmers Insurance, and he asks, will the Certificate of Need program be repealed at the end of this crisis?
I know that the governor has put in an executive order to kind of rescind that during this pandemic. There's been a lot of concerns about how the Certificate of Need operates, and it's something the legislature is going to take a hard look at once all of this is behind us. What happened with the Certificate of Need? Is it still a useful tool? Is it obsolete? We're going to be doing a lot of work on our committees in terms of sifting through that information.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you, Mr. Cook and Senator Runestead, for taking the time out of, I know your super busy schedule, to meet with us. Senator, did you have any final comments or anything you wanted to say?
Yes, I believe I have the best staff in Lansing, and I have coffee hours. I've had more coffee hours than any legislator in the House, and then up till now in the Senate. And I always ask, did the staff get back to you? And on the few occasions that they said, no, I wasn't, I didn't get an email back, I asked the staff and they provide to me a chain of emails. So I haven't had, since I've been in the Senate, one case where they didn't. So I'd encourage people, if you have questions, concerns, contact or email my staff.
Great, wonderful. Thank you again, both of you. We appreciate all you're doing in this crazy time, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having us.